She wasn't my sister in any meaningful sense. She was a specimen. Same blood, same architecture, which made her ideal. I studied her like you would study a lab rat. I charted the way her heart spike responded to stress, how her eyes dilated in low light, the rate at which...
We're gonna need backup at 1437 Oakwood Drive. Possible 1054.
Something's moving in there.
This account reconstructs a welfare check using patterns repeatedly documented in real cases. Names and identifying details have been altered. On December 12, 2025, at approximately 2:14 p.m., officers Daniel Ramirez and Tara Wilson of the Riverdale Police Department responded to a welfare check at 1437 Oakwood Drive. Officer Ramirez, a 7-year veteran with an exemplary record, and Officer Wilson, with 4 years of service and specialized training in evidence preservation, had no idea that this routine call would soon become the department's most disturbing case in decades. What they discovered behind that basement door would not only change their careers forever, but would trigger a multi-agency investigation involving the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit and ultimately expose a horrifying secret that had been hidden in plain sight for months. You're watching this from Riverdale, a quiet suburban community with a population of just under 40,000, where violent crime rates have remained consistently below the national average for the past decade. If you want to see how this investigation unfolds and the shocking evidence that was recovered from that basement, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. The body camera footage from both officers captured everything that happened next. As they waited for backup, they examined the basement door more closely. The deadbolt was new, the wood around it still lighter than the rest of the frame. Officer Wilson noted that the lock appeared to have been installed from the outside, not the inside. Why would someone need to lock a storage room from the outside? Officer Wilson whispered. The basement windows had been covered with black plastic sheeting, visible from the small gap beneath the door. And that smell, growing stronger by the minute, was one both officers recognized from their training. Within 7 minutes, 3 additional units arrived, including Detective Alex Holloway, who had investigated 27 homicides during his 15-year career.
Right here, see the gap? It's not flush.
Yeah, go ahead.
On 3. 1, 2, 3. There it goes.
Jesus, look at that.
It's a whole room. High tech,
Surgical
too.
trays, anesthesia, coolers in the corner.
Get photos of everything. Nobody touches a thing.
After a brief assessment, Detective Holloway made the decision to force entry into the locked room, citing exigent circumstances. The body cameras captured the moment when Officer Ramirez used a battering ram to break through the door. What they found inside caused even the veteran detective to step back in shock. The basement had been converted into what appeared to be a makeshift laboratory and storage facility. The room contained 7 large freezers, each secured with padlocks. Along the walls were shelves lined with hundreds of labeled containers. A stainless steel table dominated the center of the room, with drains built into the floor beneath it. But it was the wall of photographs that immediately caught their attention. Dozens of images of unknown individuals, each marked with dates going back approximately 14 months. Jesus Christ, Detective Holloway muttered, his voice captured clearly on the body camera footage. Nobody touch anything. This is now a major crime scene. As the officers secured the scene, upstairs, Marissa Brooks was becoming increasingly agitated. What's happening? Did you find Elena? Is she okay? She demanded, attempting to move past the officer stationed at the top of the basement stairs. Ma'am, I need you to remain calm and stay in the living room, the officer instructed. What none of the officers knew at that moment was that Marissa Brooks had already made 3 calls since their arrival, calls that would later become crucial evidence in the case. The investigation was about to reveal that Elena Brooks, the supposed victim, had not been in that house for months. And the sister who had reported her missing was hiding secrets that would shock the entire community. As Detective Holloway called for additional resources, including the crime scene unit and the medical examiner, he had no way of knowing that this case would eventually lead to the discovery of evidence linking to 17 missing persons cases across 3 states. The Riverdale Police Department had never handled a case of this magnitude. Within hours, the FBI would be called in, and what they discovered in those freezers would make national headlines. Do you think the police should have entered the basement without a warrant? Or did the welfare check and suspicious circumstances justify their actions? Let us know in the comments. In the next segment, we'll show you what investigators found when they opened those freezers, and the shocking revelation about who Elena Brooks really was. Information that would turn this investigation completely upside down. By 4:30 p.m., the quiet suburban street had transformed into a full-scale crime scene. Neighbors gathered behind yellow police tape as unmarked vehicles and crime scene vans lined the curb. Inside the house, Detective Holloway coordinated with a newly arrived forensic team while keeping a careful eye on Marissa Brooks, who remained in the living room under the supervision of Officer Wilson. "I don't understand what's happening," Marissa insisted, her voice rising. "Where's my sister? Why won't anyone tell me anything?" What Marissa didn't know was that Detective Holloway had already made a disturbing discovery. According to the property records pulled up on his tablet, the house at 1437 Oakwood Drive had been purchased 14 months ago, not by Elena Brooks, but by Marissa Brooks herself. In the basement, forensic technician Veronica Nguyen carefully photographed each item before evidence collection began. The first freezer's padlock had been cut open, revealing contents that immediately prompted a call to the FBI. The victim appears to have been dismembered post-mortem, medical examiner Dr. James Patel noted in his preliminary report, dictating into a recorder as he examined the contents. Based on tissue preservation and freezing method, I estimate time of death between 3 to 6 months ago. According to court documents later filed in the case, the freezer contained human remains that had been methodically sectioned and preserved in vacuum-sealed bags, each labeled with a date and alphanumeric code. Upstairs, Detective Holloway received confirmation that would change the entire direction of the investigation. "Detective, we've got something," the evidence technician said quietly, showing him a driver's license found in a hidden compartment of a desk drawer. The photo matched the woman sitting in the living room, but the name read Elena Brooks. The woman who called in the welfare check isn't Marissa Brooks, Detective Holloway realized. She's Elena. In her initial statement to police, transcribed in case file #RD 2025-1212, the woman claiming to be Marissa stated, "I speak to my sister every day. We're very close since her divorce. When she didn't answer my calls for 3 days, I knew something terrible had happened." But phone records would later reveal no calls between Elena and Marissa Brooks in the 6 months prior to the welfare check. In fact, according to multiple witness statements, the real Marissa Brooks had not been seen by neighbors or co-workers since July 2025. "I lived next door to Elena for 3 years," neighbor Thomas Carpenter told investigators in his sworn statement. "The woman who's been living there for the past year is definitely Elena, not her sister. I'd see her collecting mail addressed to Marissa, but I just assumed she was house-sitting or had moved in after her divorce." As forensic teams continued processing the basement, they discovered a laptop hidden behind one of the freezers. Digital forensics would later recover deleted files containing detailed notes, financial records, and what appeared to be a methodical plan spanning more than 18 months. The level of premeditation is extraordinary, FBI Special Agent Vanessa Rodriguez noted in her case assessment. The suspect maintained 2 separate identities simultaneously, effectively erasing her sister while assuming her life. At 5:47 p.m., Detective Holloway made the decision to formally detain Elena Brooks for questioning. The body camera footage shows her reaction, not surprise or confusion, but a strange calm. "You've made a mistake," she said quietly as Officer Wilson placed her in handcuffs. "I'm Marissa Brooks. I can prove it." But the evidence was mounting against her. In a master bedroom closet, investigators discovered a hidden compartment containing multiple identification documents for both Elena and Marissa Brooks, along with financial records showing that Marissa had a $2.5 million life insurance policy naming Elena as the sole beneficiary. The policy was taken out 18 months ago, Financial Crimes Detective Laura Simmons reported, just 2 weeks after Elena Brooks finalized her divorce and lost her primary source of income. According to divorce records obtained by investigators, Elena's ex-husband, Dr. Richard Winters, had been the primary breadwinner during their 12-year marriage. The settlement left Elena with significantly less than she had demanded, creating what prosecutors would later call a financial motive for an elaborate identity theft and insurance fraud scheme. But as investigators would soon discover, insurance fraud was just the beginning. The second freezer contained remains that didn't match Marissa's description. DNA testing would later identify them as belonging to Thomas Geller, a 43-year-old pharmaceutical sales representative who had been reported missing in October 2025. The victim had no known connection to either Elena or Marissa Brooks, stated the FBI preliminary report. However, his vehicle was found abandoned less than 2 miles from the Oakwood Drive residence. By 8:30 p.m., the FBI's evidence response team had arrived to assist local authorities. Their specialized equipment revealed blood evidence on the basement floor despite extensive cleaning efforts. Luminol testing showed large areas of blood spatter that had been meticulously cleaned, but still left trace evidence detectable under alternative light sources. The basement was essentially a processing facility. FBI Special Agent Rodriguez testified in later court proceedings. The steel table had drainage systems similar to those used in medical examinations or mortuary services. The suspect had created an efficient system for processing and preserving human remains. As investigators continued their work, they made another disturbing discovery. Hidden behind the wall of photographs was a calendar with dates circled in red. Each date corresponded to a disappearance reported within a 50-mile radius over the previous year. She was hunting, Detective Holloway concluded in his case notes, selecting victims based on some criteria we haven't yet identified. The photographs themselves revealed a pattern. Each showed an individual who appeared to be under surveillance, at gas stations, grocery stores, walking to their cars. 17 of the photographs had been marked with a red X. 3 were circled, but not marked. We believe the marked photographs represent completed acts, FBI behavioral analyst Dr. Sydney Williams stated in her assessment. The unmarked photos likely indicate future targets. By midnight, investigators had opened all 7 freezers. The contents confirmed their worst fears: human remains from multiple victims, all processed in the same methodical manner. The total number of victims would not be confirmed until DNA testing was complete, but initial estimates suggested at least 11 individuals. What puzzled investigators most was how Elena Brooks, a former elementary school librarian with no criminal history or medical training, had developed the skills necessary for such methodical work. The answer came at 2:17 a.m. when digital forensics recovered deleted browser history from the hidden laptop. Elena had spent months researching forensic techniques, human anatomy, and methods to dispose of human remains. She had accessed medical journals, forensic textbooks, and even participated in online forums discussing body preservation methods. The level of research is unprecedented, noted FBI digital forensics specialist Aaron Patel. The suspect spent thousands of hours studying techniques to both commit and conceal these crimes. But perhaps most disturbing was the journal recovered from a hidden compartment in Elena's bedroom. In entries dating back 18 months, she detailed her transformation from Elena to Marissa, practicing her sister's signature, studying her mannerisms, and planning how to assume her identity permanently. An entry dated July 12, 2025, read, "Marissa visited today. She suspects nothing. Soon I will become her completely, and Elena Brooks will cease to exist. The insurance company requires a death certificate. I found a better solution." What do you think drove Elena Brooks to such elaborate deception? Was it purely financial desperation after her divorce? Or was there something deeper in the sisters' relationship that investigators haven't yet uncovered? In the next segment, we'll reveal the shocking discovery that transformed this case from a local murder investigation to a federal manhunt involving multiple jurisdictions, and the crucial piece of evidence that Elena Brooks never expected anyone to find. Dawn broke over Riverdale as the investigation entered its 12th hour. The neighborhood had become a media encampment, with national news vans lining the street and helicopters circling overhead. Inside the house, the discovery that would transform the case came from an unexpected source. FBI technical analyst Maya Patel had been examining Elena Brooks' phone when she noticed an unusual application hidden in a secure folder. What appeared to be a calculator was actually an encrypted messaging platform. "I've got something," she called out to Special Agent Rodriguez. Messages between Elena and someone using the username Harvester42, dating back 14 months. The messages revealed a relationship that shocked even the veteran investigators. Elena Brooks wasn't working alone. Patient acquisition proceeding as planned. Read one message sent by Elena 3 months earlier. Specimen 11 processed and preserved according to protocol. Awaiting collection. The response from Harvester 42 was equally disturbing. Excellent work. The buyers are pleased with quality. Payment transferred to usual account. Next collection scheduled for December 15th. December 15th, just 3 days away. This isn't just serial murder, Special Agent Rodriguez realized. It's a commercial operation. At 7:42 a.m., FBI Director Catherine Marshall was briefed on the situation. Within 30 minutes, the case was officially classified as a joint FBI Homeland Security investigation, with potential international implications. We're looking at organ trafficking, Director Marshall stated in the emergency briefing transcribed in federal case, file #FB 2025-1213. The precision of the dissection, the preservation methods, the coded labeling system, all consistent with black market organ harvesting operations we've tracked in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia. But we've never seen anything this sophisticated on U.S. soil. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room at Riverdale Police Headquarters, Elena Brooks maintained her false identity despite mounting evidence. The interrogation video shows her calm demeanor as Detective Holloway presented photograph after photograph of victims. "I don't know these people," she insisted. "I'm Marissa Brooks. I'm the victim here. My sister is missing." The breakthrough came at 9:17 a.m. when Detective Holloway employed a different strategy. "We found the offshore accounts," he said, sliding a folder across the table.
There it is. Told you we'd get here eventually. Want to go ahead and open it, or do you already know what's inside?
I don't need to look.
Then tell me about the transfers.
Cayman Islands, Singapore, Dubai. Over $4 million in payments. We know about Harvester 42. Elena's composure cracked visibly. The interrogation video captures the moment. A slight widening of the eyes. A twitch at the corner of her mouth. "I want immunity," she said after a long silence. "That's not on the table," Detective Holloway replied. "Then I have nothing to say." But Elena Brooks had already said too much. By responding to Harvester 42, she had inadvertently confirmed her true identity. As the interrogation continued, a more significant development was unfolding at the crime scene. Behind a false wall in the basement, investigators discovered a hidden room containing medical equipment, surgical instruments, anesthesia machines, and specialized preservation containers designed for organ transport. "This is hospital-grade equipment," noted Dr. Veronica Winters, the medical examiner's surgical consultant. "Some of these items are restricted to licensed medical facilities. They're not available to the general public." According to Dr. Winters' assessment, documented in evidence file #RD 2025-1212, E42, the surgical instruments show evidence of extensive use but are meticulously maintained. The precision of the incisions observed in the victims suggests the perpetrator has advanced surgical training or is working under the direction of someone with medical expertise. This assessment raised a critical question. How did a former school librarian acquire such specialized skills and equipment? The answer came 11:23 a.m. when the FBI's background investigation into Elena Brooks revealed a detail missing from her initial background check. Before becoming a librarian, Elena had worked as an administrative assistant at Riverdale Memorial Hospital's organ transplant department for 3 years. She had access to the entire transplant process, noted Special Agent Rodriguez. Donor matching, preservation protocols, transportation logistics. She observed the entire system from the inside. But the most shocking revelation came from Elena's ex-husband, Dr. Richard Winters, who arrived at the police station after seeing the news reports. "I can't believe this," he told investigators in his recorded statement. "Elena was always fascinated by my work in transplant surgery. After we married, she took that hospital job to be closer to the field. When I filed for divorce, she became obsessed with proving she could succeed in medicine without me." Dr. Winters paused before adding the detail that would change everything. "The divorce wasn't just about growing apart. I found research on her computer, studies on organ preservation, black market prices, identity theft. When I confronted her, she said it was for a novel she was writing. I should have known better." According to court documents, Dr. Winters had reported his concerns to hospital administration shortly before their divorce, resulting in Elena's termination. What he didn't know was that she had already established connections with international organ trafficking networks through the hospital's darkest corners. At 1:45 p.m., the investigation took another dramatic turn when digital forensics recovered deleted emails from Elena's laptop. The emails contained detailed dossiers on potential victims, medical histories, blood types, tissue compatibility markers. She wasn't selecting victims randomly. She was harvesting specific organs for specific buyers. This operation has all the hallmarks of a sophisticated medical trafficking network, stated FBI Special Agent Thomas Park in his case assessment. The suspect was essentially running a boutique organ harvesting business, targeting healthy individuals with specific medical profiles that matched buyer requirements. As investigators pieced together the timeline, they realized Elena's operation had evolved. What began as a plan to fake her sister's death for insurance money had transformed into something far more lucrative when she discovered the organ trafficking network through her hospital connections. The real Marissa Brooks had likely been her first victim, not just for the insurance money, but as a test case for her harvesting techniques. At 3:17 p.m., the case broke wide open when the FBI's cyber division traced the Harvester 42 account to a startling source. Dr. Gregory Patel, chief of transplant surgery at Boston Medical Center, and a leading figure in legitimate organ transplantation. We've identified at least 7 transplant surgeons across the country connected to this network, reported FBI Cyber Division Chief Aaron Michaels. They've been using Elena Brooks as a supplier for wealthy international clients who don't want to wait on official transplant lists. Within hours, simultaneous raids were conducted at medical facilities in Boston, Chicago, and San Francisco. 11 medical professionals were taken into custody, including 3 surgeons, 4 nurses, and 4 administrative staff involved in the trafficking network. But the most critical operation was yet to come. Based on the messages recovered from Elena's phone, a major collection was scheduled for December 15th, just 3 days away. The target, 28-year-old software engineer Nathan Park, who matched the profile for a heart and kidney harvest ordered by a wealthy client in Dubai. And now that mistake is costing him everything, Detective Holloway told Elena during their final interrogation session. Dr. Patel is cooperating. The entire network is coming down. The only question is whether you'll go down as a cooperating witness or the mastermind. For the first time since her arrest, Elena Brooks showed genuine emotion. The interrogation video captures her transformation, from calculated calm to desperate panic. "You don't understand," she said, leaning forward. "These people, they're powerful. If I talk, I'm dead." "You're facing multiple life sentences," Detective Holloway countered. "Possibly the death penalty. Cooperation is your only option." After a long silence, Elena made her decision. "I'll tell you everything, but I need protection. Not just in prison, after. These people have connections everywhere." What Elena revealed next would expose a network far larger and more influential than anyone had imagined, reaching into hospital administration boards, medical licensing authorities, and even law enforcement agencies across multiple states. The quiet suburban house on Oakwood Drive had been just one node in a vast criminal enterprise that had operated undetected for years. And Elena Brooks, the unassuming former librarian, had become one of its most productive suppliers. Do you think Elena Brooks was a calculating mastermind who found her true calling in this horrific enterprise? Or was she manipulated by more powerful players in the medical establishment who recognized and exploited her desperation after her divorce? In the next segment, we'll reveal how federal authorities used Elena's information to set up an elaborate sting operation that would save Nathan Park's life and bring down one of the largest organ trafficking networks ever discovered in North America. At BY nightfall on December 13th, 2025, the FBI had established a command center at Riverdale Police Headquarters. The operation to save Nathan Park and dismantle the organ trafficking network was now the Bureau's highest priority. "We have less than 48 hours, Special Agent Rodriguez briefed the assembled team. According to Elena Brooks' testimony, Park is scheduled for abduction on the evening of December 15th, with harvesting to begin immediately after. Elena Brooks, now in protective custody, had provided detailed information about the network's operations. Her testimony recorded in federal case, file #FB 2025-1213 T7, revealed a chilling system. The buyers submit requests through an encrypted platform. Blood type, organ specifications, timeline. Harvester 42, Dr. Patel, matches these requests with potential donors identified through hospital records. Then he assigns acquisition to suppliers like me. We're paid 30% upfront, 70% on delivery. When asked how she selected her victims, Elena's response stunned even veteran investigators. I didn't choose randomly. I studied their routines, their health habits. I needed specimens with no drug history, limited alcohol consumption, regular exercise. Premium organs command premium prices. The investigation revealed that Elena had been paid between $50,000 and $200,000 per acquisition, with total payments exceeding $4.2 million over 14 months. The organs were sold to international buyers for up to 10 times that amount. This is the most sophisticated black market organ operation we've ever encountered on U.S. soil, testified Dr. Meredith Park, the FBI's medical consultant, in her preliminary assessment. The preservation techniques, the matching protocols, they mirror legitimate transplant procedures almost exactly. As the FBI planned their operation to save Nathan Park, a parallel investigation was uncovering the full extent of Elena's crimes. Forensic anthropologists had begun the painstaking process of identifying remains from the 7 freezers. We've confirmed 11 distinct victims so far, reported Dr. Veronica Petersburg, lead forensic anthropologist. Based on tissue samples and DNA analysis, the earliest victim appears to be Marissa Brooks, killed approximately 5 months ago. The timeline matched Elena's journal entries. An entry dated July 15, 2025, read, "First procedure complete. More difficult than anticipated, but successful. Harvester 42 pleased with quality. Payment confirmed." Meanwhile, the investigation into Dr. Gregory Patel was revealing an operation far larger than initially suspected. His cooperation, secured through a plea agreement, exposed a network spanning 12 countries and involving over 30 medical professionals. "I never performed the surgeries myself," Dr. Patel insisted in his recorded testimony. "I only facilitated connections between suppliers and buyers. The actual transplants were performed by surgeons in private clinics overseas." But evidence recovered from Dr. Patel's encrypted files told a different story. Financial records showed he had received over $12 million in consulting fees from a shell company in the Cayman Islands linked to an exclusive private hospital in Dubai. Dr. Patel wasn't just a middleman, noted FBI financial crimes specialist Jennifer Martinez. He was the architect of the entire operation. He identified vulnerable medical professionals with financial problems, recruited them into the network, and established the protocols for organ acquisition and transport. Court documents revealed that Dr. Patel had specifically targeted Elena Brooks after learning about her divorce from Dr. Winters. She had the perfect background, he admitted in his testimony: medical adjacent knowledge, financial desperation, and psychological instability. "I knew she could be molded into an effective supplier." By the morning of December 14th, the FBI had placed Nathan Park under 24-hour surveillance while preparing a sting operation to capture the extraction team scheduled to abduct him the following evening. Based on Elena's information, the abduction team consists of 3 individuals. Special Agent Rodriguez briefed the tactical team, 2 former military personnel, and a nurse anesthetist. They operate using a medical transport van disguised as a private ambulance service. As the operation to save Nathan Park took shape, the media coverage of Elena Brooks' case had exploded nationwide. Cable news networks broadcast continuous coverage from Riverdale, with headlines declaring "Suburban Horror House" and "Librarian by day, Organ Harvester by night." Neighbors who had known Elena for years expressed disbelief and horror. "She was so quiet, so normal," said Sandra Johnson, who had lived across the street for 5 years. "She brought me cookies when my mother died. How could she do something so monstrous?" But those who had worked with Elena at Riverdale Memorial Hospital painted a different picture. "She was obsessed with the transplant process," recalled Nurse Stephanie Park in her witness statement. "She would ask detailed questions about organ preservation, tissue matching, surgical techniques. We thought she was just interested in her husband's work." Dr. Richard Winters, Elena's ex-husband, faced his own public scrutiny. Though cleared of any involvement in the trafficking network, his professional reputation suffered. In a statement released through his attorney, he expressed profound shock and devastation at his ex-wife's crimes. "I never imagined Elena was capable of such horrific acts," the statement read. "Had I understood the true nature of her research, I would have immediately reported my concerns to authorities rather than simply hospital administration." On the evening of December 14th, Elena Brooks made a final deal with federal prosecutors. In exchange for complete cooperation and testimony against the entire network, she would avoid the death penalty, instead receiving multiple life sentences without possibility of parole. The defendant's cooperation has been instrumental in identifying both victims and co-conspirators, stated U.S. Attorney Riley Martinez in the plea agreement documents. Her testimony will be crucial in dismantling this international criminal enterprise. As part of her cooperation, Elena provided detailed information about the network's communication protocols, financial structures, and international connections. Most critically, she revealed the extraction team's exact plans for Nathan Park's abduction. They'll approach his apartment at 8:15 p.m., posing as paramedics responding to a reported medical emergency, she explained in her final debriefing. They use a paralytic agent administered through a disguised auto-injector. Looks like an EpiPen. The victim is conscious but completely immobilized within seconds. Armed with this information, the FBI finalized their operation. 30 agents were positioned around Nathan Park's apartment building, with tactical teams ready to intercept the extraction team. Nathan Park himself had been secretly relocated, with an FBI agent of similar build taking his place in the apartment. At 8:12 p.m. on December 15th, surveillance cameras captured a white van with medical insignia pulling up to Nathan Park's building. 3 individuals in paramedic uniforms exited the vehicle, carrying medical bags and a gurney. Subjects approaching the target location, reported the surveillance team. Moving exactly as predicted, the extraction team entered the building, completely unaware they were walking into a trap. Body camera footage from the operation shows the moment when the team knocked on the apartment door, announcing themselves as paramedics responding to a medical emergency. When the door opened, they were met by a team of FBI agents with weapons drawn. The extraction team surrendered without resistance, clearly shocked by the ambush. They never expected to be caught, noted Special Agent Rodriguez in her operation report. Their confidence in the network's security had made them careless. The arrests triggered simultaneous operations across the country. In total, 27 individuals were taken into custody that night, including surgeons, nurses, medical administrators, and transportation specialists connected to the network. International arrest warrants were issued for 15 additional suspects, including wealthy clients who had purchased organs and surgeons who had performed illegal transplants. The financial investigation uncovered over $75 million in payments processed through the network over the past 3 years. Assets were frozen, properties seized, and medical licenses revoked as the full extent of the operation became clear. For Elena Brooks, the consequences were immediate and permanent. Her plea agreement guaranteed she would spend the rest of her life in federal prison, housed in a special protective custody unit due to the high-profile nature of her crimes and her cooperation against powerful criminal elements. The defendant has expressed no remorse for her victims, noted the pre-sentencing psychiatric evaluation. She views her actions through a transactional lens, describing the harvesting of human organs in the same clinical terms one might use for any business operation. When asked by investigators why she had targeted her own sister as her first victim, Elena's response was chillingly pragmatic. "I needed to practice on someone I knew well. Someone whose disappearance I could explain. Someone whose identity I could assume. Marissa was the logical choice." The case against Elena Brooks and the organ trafficking network would become one of the most significant federal prosecutions of the decade, with implications reaching far beyond the quiet suburban street where it all began. Do you believe the justice system's focus should be on punishing Elena Brooks for her horrific crimes? Or should the priority be using her cooperation to dismantle the entire network that enabled and profited from this organ trafficking operation? In our final segment, we'll examine the aftermath of this case, how it changed transplant medicine forever, the reforms it triggered in hospital security protocols, and the lasting impact on the families of Elena's victims, including the real Marissa Brooks, whose identity was stolen by the sister who took her life. 3 weeks after the discovery at 1437 Oakwood Drive, the quiet suburban neighborhood was still reeling from the shock. News vans remained stationed at the perimeter of the police tape, and curious onlookers drove by slowly, trying to glimpse the house where such horrors had occurred. On January 3, 2026, in a packed federal courtroom, Judge Riley Martinez presided over the initial hearing in United States versus Elena Brooks. Due to the extraordinary nature of these crimes and the defendants' continued cooperation with federal authorities, this court will expedite proceedings while ensuring all constitutional protections remain in place, Judge Martinez stated, addressing the gallery filled with journalists and family members of victims. Elena Brooks, dressed in an orange jumpsuit and shackled at the wrists and ankles, showed no visible emotion as the charges were read. 11 counts of first-degree murder, human trafficking, conspiracy, fraud, and numerous other federal violations. The defendant has waived her right to a jury trial and entered guilty pleas to all charges, announced U.S. Attorney James Park. In exchange for her continued cooperation in dismantling the larger criminal enterprise, the government has agreed not to seek the death penalty. The plea agreement, unprecedented in its scope, reflected the value of Elena's testimony against the organ trafficking network. She would receive multiple life sentences without possibility of parole, to be served in a specialized federal facility with enhanced security protocols. Even as Elena's case moved towards sentencing, the larger investigation continued to expand.
She was my only child. Every morning I wake up and I reach for her, and she's gone. You'll never know what you took from us.
Thank you, Mrs. Bennett. You may step back. Mr. Torres, the court has considered the evidence, the jury's verdict, and the statements heard today. It is the judgment of this court that you be committed to the custody of the Bureau.
Dr. Gregory Patel, facing similar charges, had followed Elena's example and turned state's evidence. His testimony had already led to the arrest of 27 individuals across 6 countries. This network operated with impunity for years, stated FBI Director Catherine Marshall at a press conference on December 30, 2025. Thanks to the evidence recovered from the Oakwood Drive residence, we've identified connections to illegal transplant operations in 12 countries. This will likely become the largest organ trafficking prosecution in history. For the families of Elena's victims, the swift legal proceedings provided some measure of closure, though their grief remained raw and overwhelming. The remains recovered from the freezers had been identified through expedited DNA analysis, allowing families to begin planning funerals even as the holiday season approached. Among them was the family of the real Marissa Brooks, whose parents had spent months believing their daughter was alive while Elena impersonated her. "She stole my daughter twice," said Catherine Brooks, Marissa's mother, in her victim impact statement during a preliminary hearing. "First her life, then her identity. Every holiday card she sent us pretending to be Marissa was another violation. We were exchanging messages with our daughter's killer." The case triggered immediate reforms in the medical community. By late December, the American Medical Association had announced emergency protocols for transplant programs, including enhanced background checks for all personnel with access to donor information and stricter controls on surgical equipment. "The Brooks case has exposed critical vulnerabilities in our systems," stated Dr. Veronica Petersburg, Chief of Transplant Medicine at Johns Hopkins Hospital, in an emergency session of the National Medical Ethics Committee on December 28. "We cannot wait for the full legal process to conclude before implementing reforms." For Nathan Park, the software engineer who narrowly escaped becoming Elena's 12th victim, the holiday season brought a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. After learning how close he had come to death, Park established a support fund for the families of Elena's victims. "I was given a second chance that 11 others never received," Park explained in a statement released through his attorney. "I'll spend the rest of my life honoring that responsibility." The FBI agents and local police who had worked the case found themselves working through Christmas and New Year's, following leads generated by Elena's cooperation. The investigation had expanded to include financial crimes units tracking the millions that had flowed through the network. "We've identified over $75 million in transactions related to this operation," reported FBI Financial Crimes Specialist Jennifer Martinez on December 29. The money trail connects to private clinics in Dubai, Singapore, and Geneva, where the illegally harvested organs were transplanted into wealthy recipients. By early January, international arrest warrants had been issued for 15 additional suspects, including surgeons who had performed illegal transplants and wealthy clients who had purchased organs harvested by Elena Brooks. The house at 1437 Oakwood Drive remained sealed as a federal crime scene, its future uncertain. Neighbors had begun leaving flowers along the police tape perimeter, not for Elena, but for her victims. "We never knew what was happening right next door," said Thomas Carpenter, who had lived beside the Brooks house for 3 years. "That's the most terrifying part. She seems so normal, so ordinary. How do you ever trust your neighbors again after something like this?" For Detective Alex Holloway, who had led the initial investigation, the case represented both the pinnacle and the nadir of his career. "In 30 years of law enforcement, I've never seen anything like it," he told reporters after Elena's plea hearing. "The methodical nature of these crimes, the complete absence of remorse, it challenges everything we think we know about human behavior." Special Agent Vanessa Rodriguez, who had coordinated the FBI's involvement, found herself becoming the public face of the investigation as it captured national attention. "What makes this case unique is not just the horror of the crimes, but how they intersected with legitimate medical systems," she explained during a press briefing on January 2nd. Elena Brooks exploited her knowledge of transplant procedures to create a business model based on human suffering. As 2026 began, the case against Elena Brooks was moving toward its conclusion, but the larger investigation was just beginning to reveal the full scope of the trafficking network. Elena herself remained in federal custody, housed in a special unit reserved for high-profile cooperating witnesses. According to prison officials, she spent her days creating detailed maps of the network's operations and writing comprehensive statements about her methods and contacts. Prison psychologists who evaluated Elena found no evidence of remorse or emotional distress over her crimes. In her initial psychological assessment, completed on December 24th, the lead psychiatrist noted, "The subject displays classic traits of malignant narcissism combined with antisocial personality disorder. She views her victims not as human beings, but as specimens whose value is determined by the quality of their organs." When asked during one evaluation session if she ever thought about her sister Marissa, Elena's response was chilling in its detachment. "Of course. She was my first. I made several technical errors that I corrected with subsequent subjects. In that sense, her contribution to my development was invaluable." By mid-January, as Elena awaited formal sentencing, the FBI had used her information to conduct raids in 3 additional states, arresting 9 more medical professionals connected to the network. The investigation had expanded to include hospital administrators who had looked the other way when surgical equipment went missing or when questionable patients received transplants without proper documentation. "This case has revealed corruption at every level of the transplant system," stated U.S. Attorney Park at a January 15th press conference. "From individual surgeons to hospital administrators to international brokers who matched wealthy clients with illegal organs. For the families of Elena's victims, no legal outcome could ever truly provide justice." The parents of Marissa Brooks had begun the painful process of planning a funeral for their daughter, whose remains had been among the first identified. "We lost Marissa months ago, but we're only now able to mourn her," Robert Brooks told reporters outside the courthouse. "Elena stole that from us too, the chance to say goodbye properly." The case of Elena Brooks would eventually become a landmark in criminal justice, studied by law enforcement agencies, medical ethics boards, and psychology researchers seeking to understand how an outwardly normal suburban librarian had transformed into one of the most prolific killers in recent history. But in those early weeks of 2026, as winter settled over Riverdale, the focus remained on the victims. 11 lives cut short by a woman who had viewed them not as human beings, but as resources to be harvested. "We don't want Elena Brooks to become infamous," said Thomas Geller's widow in a statement read by her attorney. "We want the world to remember Tom and the others who died. Good people who deserve to live, who had families and dreams and futures that were stolen from them." In response to these concerns, the FBI established a temporary memorial in the Riverdale Police Department lobby, featuring photographs and brief biographies of each victim, focusing not on how they died, but on how they had lived. As for Elena Brooks, Her final statement before sentencing revealed the true depth of her detachment from human emotion. "I provided a service that met a market need," she told the court on January 20th. "If it hadn't been me, it would have been someone else. The demand for organs will always exceed the supply. I simply created an efficient solution to that imbalance." Judge Martinez's response was immediate and unequivocal. The court rejects the defendant's characterization of her crimes as a service. "Elena Brooks, you did not create efficiency. You created tragedy. You did not solve a market imbalance. You destroyed lives for profit." With those words, she sentenced Elena Brooks to 11 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, effectively ensuring that she would spend the rest of her life in federal prison. As Elena was led from the courtroom, the families of her victims stood in silence, not in celebration of justice served, but in solemn recognition of the lives that could never be restored. Outside the courthouse, snow began to fall on Riverdale, covering the community in a blanket of white that would eventually melt away. But for those touched by the case of Elena Brooks, some marks would never fade. Reminders that evil can hide in plain sight, even in the quietest neighborhoods, behind the most ordinary faces. Do you believe that cases like Elena Brooks should be widely publicized as cautionary tales? Or does such coverage risk inspiring copycat crimes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this investigation valuable, please subscribe to our channel for more in-depth examinations of cases that change how we understand crime and justice in America.